What's up YouTube? I'm back again this week. JB, Dr. Supercoach. We are returning to talk about the biggest risers and fallers of round 0. Coming right up. Alright guys, we are back, and as I said off the top, we're going to talk about the biggest risers and fallers I expect from the fallout of round 0. So the first name I've got here on my list is Isaac Heeney. Now he is owned in just 2.7% of teams. If we have a look at his stats from the first week, he had 50% CBAs, 58% CBAs, which is a huge jump from what he saw last season. He only saw that on 4 occasions last year for scores of 141, 94, 75 and 143. So those 4 games pretty much spell out what we expect to see from approximately 50%-ish or more CBAs for the game. Does that make him an absolute lock? I don't think so. But being forward eligible and the player that he is, if he has a good start to the season with Taylor Adams and Luke Parker not to be returning probably for the first at least month and a half, maybe 2 months for one of those, I think it's a great opportunity to maybe start someone with the bye, see how they go, and then reassess at the bye, potentially for some money made, some points on the board, and some potentially big scores. The last thing I do want to point out is he averaged 96.4 from his wins last season and a measly 77.8 from the losses. They do start the year with Collingwood, but after that they have Essendon, Richmond and West Coast, which is a pretty good open run. Even if he does play as strictly as a forward, even if you don't think the role is going to be there every single week, those averages are with him scoring well, averaging well as a forward in wins regardless. So I think a bit of a safety net there. I think we probably expect him to see about 95 as a floor over the first month of the season, with a potential upside of about 105 as a forward. So we've obviously seen the first big score so far of the season. That is going to give his price a good shake up come round 3, round 2 even, the shake up will happen. So I think it's a decent opportunity, not for everyone. I don't have Isaac Heeney in my team right now, but the risk appetite I expect will be higher than 2.7% come first week. The next guy I have here is Blake Howes from Melbourne Football Club, 3.6% owned, a defender rookie, 123,000. This guy I think is going to be owned by closer to 60-70% of the competition when they see that he scored 91 in the first opening round of the season. That is just he's gonna not only have one of the earliest price rises with the other rookies that played this week, but he's gonna have a mammoth price rise as well. Not only that, he seems pretty well cemented into that back 6 with Jake Bowie doing his shoulder. Unfortunately, he's out for a couple of months. I think the job security was already good enough, but now we have Bowie out, it makes it a little bit stronger. If you were worried about his statistics, he had 17 possessions, 7 of which were marked, 3 tackles, 9 of his possessions were contested, 82% disposal efficiency. Now, I actually thought watching this game he was a bit shaky to start. He had one where he went for a mark, and instead of being able to mark it or even bring it to ground or keep it in front of him, it pretty much went directly over his head for a goal against. Now, since that exact moment in the game, he did nothing but good things. I think he's going to stand out a lot to the coaching side. He's someone that essentially, after that one blunder early on, went mistakeless for the rest of the game. So he's definitely one in my back 6, not only just in my defender slots, but he's actually on field for me as well. The 3.6% ownership I expect to rise heavily. Jaden Shaw is the next man, 3.5% ownership at this stage, scored 130 SuperCoach points on the Saturday game of Richmond versus Gold Coast. He looked like he was back to his normal rebounding halfback role that we've been waiting for a long time since he got taken out of it, essentially. I think he had 1 or 2 good midfield games, but besides that was essentially a non-option in the last couple of seasons as a result. Did look great again in this game. He's gone back to over 50% of the kickouts available he took in this game. I think it was 8 of the 15, so I think that number could even look to rise a little bit. The only thing is he had 23 touches, which isn't it's not elite for a half-backman, and his disposal efficiency was 95%. And you're going to say, JB, that's what he's known for. He's a great disposal of the football. 95% is unsustainable. He will not get that for the season. He might get that for games going forward, but not for the entire season. So I do expect him to have some lower games. From his price, really a 105 plus average would be exceptional. Anything around 100 would be passable as a D6, but I think he's probably capable of going higher. Look, I don't think he's for everyone. He does have that early buy as well, obviously. That's why he's on this list of round 0 players, but 3.5% ownership seems too low for Jaden Shaw. Now, the last player I have going up in a ownership percentage who I think is too low at the moment did not play this weekend, so you can call me a big fat liar in the comment section down below, please do. It's Tom Liberatore at 6.4% ownership. I really don't understand this one. I know there's a lot of good midfielders to choose from. We're probably going to talk about one shortly that is maybe too highly owned, that maybe this is a good pivot option for. But 30 touches and 7 tackles, 20 of his disposals, of his 30, were contested in the last practice game that we had. The first practice game, I know he went massive as well, but that was a sort of, Bevo sort of split the teams between the A grade squad and the B grade squad, sort of split them evenly between the VFL and the AFL. Really strange. Obviously, it was to test out certain players, how they would go with the AFL team, and how, I suppose, I don't know if he was testing Bont in the VFL team to see if he'd dominate, but I'm sure he did. But Tom Liberatore was with that A team, and he did dominate that game as well. This second game, though, more indicative of what we expect to see from the Bulldogs team throughout the season. So I'm taking that obviously as a much better indicator as to what we're going to see for the year. Now, I know people are a little bit concerned about the late breakout, the age that he is, and the advanced age in which he did break out last season. But look, worst case scenario, I can see maybe 2 points per game regression on him, but that's purely age related. I still think he's got some mammoth scores, and he was underrated last season. I see him being underrated already this season. Now, for the first of the players I think are going to have a big steady drop for the between round 0 and round 1, I'm going to start with Errol Golden. Now, he's owned by 40.7% of coaches. That is an obscene amount. I haven't had him in my team for, I don't think, all preseason. Pretty much when SuperCoach announced that the round 0 teams are all going to have a bye and their scores aren't going to count for your overall ranking in round 0, I think at that point I jumped off him. Rightfully or gladly so, because if the round 0 game was counted, I likely would have had Golden, and I would have had this shocking score as a result. So he had 20 touches at 55% disposal efficiency. He scored in the 70s. That's not a big deal. He's not going to just have 20 touches per game all season. He's not going to go at 55 disposal efficiency. Maybe again. Those aren't the big factors to why I don't think he's going to be a good starting selection. I think now, unless he goes 150 for the next 2 games, which is entirely within his repertoire, and you'll say, JB, look at his starting run. Against all of these teams last year, he went massive, but he went massive against Melbourne. So what does that mean? Does that mean that these teams are now just going to let him go crazy again? Does it mean they have better game plans for him? Does it mean potentially he gets a little bit of attention in those games, whereas he didn't last season? I think there's something to be said about players who break out and have huge games and then play those teams again next year. Those teams, not that they feel silly about what happened the game prior, but you don't let someone you know beat you time and time again. So I just don't expect him to go massive in those games. I think he still can, and he probably still will in at least 1 or 2 of them. But will he go massive like he rattled off last year? Obviously not, because he's already not done it against Melbourne, which he did last year. So I think with those factors, and the fact that he's already scored in the 70s to start the year, his 620k price tag, I don't see a lot of this talk on Twitter, but at the moment, well, not at the moment, the fact of the matter is this year, with the price rises happening earlier for the round 0 players, the players who score poorly in round 0 are going to drop much harsher, because the players who score well still need to rise. And the money comes from somewhere. It's not a fluid amount of money in the game. It comes from somewhere. So the bottom tier are going to be taking it up from the top tier that score poorly. Clayton Oliver would have been in this video if he was owned by more than like 2%, because he scored poorly as well. His price is going to plummet. When Golden's break even is released, I think you'll see a mass exodus on Golden, probably to the tune of 10-15%. And a lot of people might go, okay, great, now he's a POD. but he won't be for long. You'll get 2 or 3 rounds of him, then he'll have his bye after round 5, and we'll say, okay, well, now that he's 580k, one of the best picks in the game, he's going to be my first upgrade. And that is just playing money a little bit more efficiently. So I think if you can replace him with someone that you don't think is going to drop for a sustained period, and then look to him as your first upgrade, you might have better success this season. The next one makes me question as to whether there was any viewership for round 0 whatsoever. It's Jack Billings. He scored a paltry 11 Supercoach points as the sub for Melbourne this week. Now, 25.6% of people still have Jack Billings in their team. Did they not watch what happened? Did they not see that he was sub? Do they maybe look at their phone only on Mondays when all the scores are through and maybe the break-evens are in? I'm not quite sure, but I don't expect to see Jack Billings in more than 5% of teams. He shouldn't be, unless there's 5% plus of inactive teams. Even if he's named, he's likely to have a price drop, and I don't think he was guaranteed for a good enough average as it was. But that 11 Supercoach, he's going to come down. He might be a downgrade option in 2 or 3 weeks' time, which is insane to say, but that is the fact of the matter. He scored 11 Supercoach, and if he's green vest able, then he's red vest able as well. So I just think he's an absolute non-option. We have enough rookies out there. I could probably rattle off 15 of them, but I'll leave that for Pistol's rookie preview. But essentially, there's enough guys that we don't have to be pushing Jack Billings into our team, especially following an 11 Supercoach green vest sub-appearance game. 2 more players remaining. Second to last player right now is going to be Finlay McRae. He's owned by 19.4% of teams right now. 19.4% of people did not see that he wasn't even named. Not just that, but he didn't play the last practice match with the best team. He came on as one of those after halftime sort of sub-appearance guys. He did well. I think he's a good scorer, a good Supercoach scorer. I think he'll be at a different team next season even. But is he good enough for our Supercoach team? We have enough rookie-priced forwards. We have enough midfield-priced rookies. Rookie-priced midfielders even. So why are we pushing in someone like Finn McRae, who's clearly not in the best 23? I could say Jack Billings isn't in the best 22 because he was sub. McRae's not in the best 23. He was emergency this week. Is that going to change? Collingwood lost the game. Maybe they think, what are we missing? Finn McRae. What they probably realise is Ash Johnson maybe shouldn't have played over Ruth McInnes, which is another thing to look at. But 20% of people still holding on to Finn McRae, I think, are either going to get locked into something very silly to start the season, or they're going to notice that he's not in, and our ownership is going to drop to what should be about 1% of inactive coaches. Now, lastly, this one is a little bit of a sadder one. 25.5% of people still have Kitty Coleman. He was looking like a successful pick. He was on track for over 50 by half time. Well on track for that. Was probably going to make a mockery of that, to be honest. He finished on about 37 Supercoach points and has confirmed to have done his ACL as well. So this is really just a call to arms for anyone who does still have an active team who might have missed that news. Kitty Coleman needs to go. 25% of people, that number ideally drops to 0% by the start of the season, because we're not going to see him this year. It's unlikely that we see him this year, and maybe not even for the start of the year next year. However, he might be very, very cheap next year. With a score of 37 and another 12 months out of the game, he could be around the 200k mark. So he's someone that we will be looking at next year, especially if you fancied him this year. You're going to love him even more next year. But unfortunately, prayers go out for Kitty Coleman. Hopefully a speedy recovery, but will not be a factor in this season whatsoever. So get him out of your side. That's going to do it for me. Now, I hope you did enjoy. Please do hit that like and subscribe button. I don't know if we're over 2k yet, but I'm recording this before we get over that mark. It'd be amazing to hit that before the start of the season. I will be doing some more content. I'll be updating everyone on the January locked-in team, which is going to look very, very interesting at this stage. I think Jack McRae was firmly my F1, which will have to be the case because it's a locked-in team. But I'll do an update on that. I'll update all the rookies and move around some players now that round 0 has sort of gone and been and gone. I can lock that in for round 1. On top of that, I'll probably do some more content just on general things like this, but anything that you are curious on, anything you do want me to talk on, please do comment down below. I do read all the suggestions and try to get out as much content as possible. I expect this week to be a busy week, potentially a stream coming up for Thursday's opener. Stay tuned. Thanks everyone for listening.